related questions or issues with our clinical affairs experts on the line to help answer your questions. As a note, there will be no contact hours awarded for these sessions. My name is Marianne Drosnock, and I'm the Director of Clinical Affairs here at Healthmark Industries, and I'll be your moderator for this conversation on the couch. Everyone has been muted during the session, but we may ask you during the session to type your thoughts in or questions or statements on the conversation, and of course, answer a question to win our couch prize. And you'll see that in the questions tab on your control panel. So please, if you have any questions or comments, just type it in there. As soon as the event ends, you'll be provided a survey. Your feedback would be greatly appreciated. Also, everyone will receive an email about an hour after this conversation with another link to that survey, just in case you didn't get to do it at the end of the program. And you'll also find within there a link to today's recorded sessions. Under the handouts tab on your control panel, you'll also find some items to download. In there are the presenter bios, a featured product couch brochure, and Healthmark's social media and digest flyer. Now, let's get started and introduce our clinical affairs professionals for this evening's conversation. First, we have Seth Hendee. Seth, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Seth Hendee, clinical education coordinator in the Northeast. I'm located in Vermont. It's cold here, as you can tell, so I'm just trying to stay warm and be ready for this conversation. And I want to know if I'm excluded from the light box, because that's actually a very cool thing. I could use that for all of my stuff.
Seth, you're talking about the prize for tonight, the UVC LED box?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see. I made up the question. We'll see how that turns out. And next we have Sharon. Rojo, go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I am another clinical education coordinator, and I'm in Viva Las Vegas, where you can tell by my shirt it's hot. No, it's actually cold. It's not as cold as over there where Seth is with sweater. And I actually have a UVC LED box, and it's like really cool. So I don't want to rub it in, but it's cool.
I'll be putting all my stuff in there. I'm not kidding. I want that.
All right, why don't we go ahead and get started. First, we do have one poll question to start the night off, and that's just to tell us who is joining us tonight. All right, so let me launch the poll. Okay, please answer the question, who is joining us tonight? Are you sterile processing, OR nurse or surg tech professional, infection prevention, vendor, manufacturer, other, or endoscopy? All right, those votes are still coming in. And slowing down, we're going to close that. Let's share the results. And we have 32% sterile processing professionals, and 58% vendor, manufacturer, other, and 11% endoscopy professionals. So thank you for joining us all tonight. I do appreciate that. With that, we're ready to get started with our conversation and our questions for the evening. So let's go ahead and advance the slides. Ta-da! Look at that reveal. Brand new. First time ever. Here we go. The first question that we have is to Seth. Seth, what are some of the updates or amendments for ST79 that we could see this year? Wait, I heard they just came out. Is that true?
We will actually get to see them this year. Yes, we will. So just like in years past, you know, ST79 is still pretty good. So really 4 amendments were what was needed to kind of update a few sections. And so it is section 3, which is EVS, giving some guidance for cleaning, fans, a little bit of HVAC, section 8 for insulation testing, and then 12 and 13 with sterilizer cleaning and BI, and specifically lot number recommendations for BIs. So those are the 3, or I'm sorry, the 4.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm not the one drinking, so I knew there were 4.
No, there's 4. I did name 4 sections, even though, yeah, no,
late, but not that late.
Any specifics you want to tell us about any of those amendments?
Sure. You're actually not going to find anything new where you say, oh, this is a huge difference. But what's great is they're really starting to add guidance. I'll use the EVS one, for example. Some of the things in Section 3 are trying to fix some of the problems we used to have. I know environmental services used to come in and feel very uncomfortable about what they could and should touch in our central service department, right? And there were things that we as technicians said, I think EVS is cleaning that. And they said, no, I think you're cleaning that. And so some of the guidance is setting up policies, working with IP and EVS to make sure that everybody knows what's getting cleaned, when. There's a nice little sample table about routines, daily, weekly, monthly, so really all four of them are just trying to firm up guidance on some things. The BI lot control one I actually think is fairly interesting, because if you have a system that works for this already, it might not be that big a deal. If you've got an electronic system where you're already recording some results with lot numbers, you may say, well, I can very easily comply with that. If you don't, that's really something to consider now that they're expecting lot numbers for the BI itself and the control to be tied in with each load. And if you can't do that easily, it's really something to consider.
Great. So audience members that are here tonight, if you would please go into the questions tab, tell us what your thoughts are on the new amendments. That would be great. Let's see what we get. Seth, any other thoughts you'd like to share?
The BI, interestingly enough, and follows the way that we're trending in our whole thing, is that the sterilizer cleaning. That was the one out of Section 12. It's really referring a little more back to the IFU instead of something, instead of prescribing that you set up a time like daily to clean your sterilizer. It says that you should be observing, looking for changes, stains, that kind of stuff, but then following the IFU for PMs. So that's kind of a thing where they're saying, you know what, we want these IFUs, so we should be looking at the IFU for the sterilizer as well. I thought that was, yeah.
Yeah, so we did get quite a few questions or comments that came in. So I'm going to go through those with you, Seth, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The first one is, are these recommendations or are these written as musts in the new amendments?
No, most of them are shoulds. There's not a ton of shalls. So most of them are may instead of must, right? I love it if you've got your standards, they put those in there. There's a place to see what each one of those words mean, and because there's a lot of reason to say must versus may. So most of these are may, or there should, things to consider that are going to add quality, but none of them are quite as prescriptive as shall.
Right. So the should is a strong recommendation. All right. Some other feedback that we got is the amendments aren't too complicated and people like them. So that's good. Another comment, insulation testing was long overdue, and Sharon is going to address that specific topic on insulation testing.
Amen.
Yeah. Here's a general question. Why should we follow ANSI AAMI documents?
You want to take that one, Cheron? You want me to?
Because it's the right thing to do. I mean, for best practice. I mean, yeah.
What I would say, just really, we sit down and we spend a lot of time with these documents, and we're nerds. I have to own that a little bit. And so I really want to say, if you've got a practice that doesn't come from AAMI or AORN, I'd like to know where you came up with it, because there's a lot of smart people in this room trying to figure out, is this the right thing to do, and can it be done? And so, if you're not following them, what are you following? Where are you getting that guidance? It should be from eggheads like us.
But I think in New Jersey too, it's law, right? I mean, in that specific state versus other ones. So,
Right, and if you say you're following AAMI standards, then you're going to be surveyed to AAMI standards. So it's, again, about doing the right thing and following the best practices. Some other comments we got: the amendments have been much needed and are welcome changes. Also, I believe it's great that they came up with these new amendments. The field is always changing with new practices, techniques, and equipment. So the more knowledge, the better. And amen to that, right?
Right.
Okay, another question that came in, whichever one of you want to take this. How can SPD and environmental services, EV, work together better?
Wow. Well, I know from my experience, it was actually educating environmental and having them not just tour the department, but actually spending a couple hours every week, just the leadership. And then eventually it became the individual assigned to that work area, and really educating them about not just these key areas of why it needs to be clean, but also protecting themselves, because a lot of times they didn't protect themselves appropriately in Deacontown, or using the same type of cleaning materials there and crossing it over and looking at cross-contamination. So I think education is very much key here. And then there forms a relationship, obviously, from that. So I found that was really helpful for a lot of the facilities I worked at.
I would agree 100%. We had spaces where we said, I am sure that housekeeping is cleaning that. And when we would go like this and there would be dust, which is like our nemesis, right? And we would say to the environmental services person, why didn't you clean that? And they were like, I don't feel comfortable. I thought you cleaned that. So, I mean, just quite literally mapping out who does what is a huge thing. And a lot of times it's sort of taken for granted. Oh, they know, or we know, and everything's fine. And it's not always like that.
Right. Here's a good comment that came in. In well over a decade of doing SPD and being an educator, and now in QC improvement, I have never been to a facility that did not record all lot numbers. I was very surprised to realize that some do not record those.
Well, recording and tying it in. Now, there's another thing, if you write this somewhere randomly, it doesn't exactly count. Putting this in writing means that a surveyor can come in and say, yes, not only do I want to see the physical monitor for this load and the BI and the lot number that was run and it passed, you can prove to me for this load that the control, and it's just a traceability thing that some people are like, yeah, we write the control in one book and the BI results in another. So now those, they don't translate. And that's, especially if you're doing a paper process, that's where it can be an issue.
Do you guys feel, or why do you feel that AAMI needed to address these in ST79, which is really a steam sterilization document in general? So why these amendments and how do they fit in there is a question that we got.
Well, I'll jump in, I guess. Because there was really no other area to look for. I mean, I know that, let's say for the environmental piece, I had nothing to reference. I always seemed like pushback from leadership in environmental, and it was like, well, who says this? Where is that documented? Or, how do we know where, it's defined of, just areas that should be cleaned and all of that. And I think that having it here, which is our so-called Bible, it was easier to look up and be able to reference and be able to say, well, you know what, here's an amendment that actually goes over some stuff. And by the way, here's actually a grid or a table that kind of is an example of what, could be done and, go from there. So I think that, and also with installation testing, which I'll talk about, it was very much way overdue needed. It wasn't anywhere but IFUs, but not all IFUs. So this was another area where, we can go to actually have recommendations. So.
Absolutely. Plus, I know that you both have been into departments that grab, one standard. Mary Ann, ST90, you can go into places that say, I have the AAMI standards, and they pull out ST79. Now that is great, and it is very comprehensive. It's in the title that it's a comprehensive guide, right? But standards cost money. People have to try to maintain them. And so, I've seen places that latch onto just one or two standards. So for AAMI's part, they're saying, hey, we're putting as much information about your sterile processing department as we can in this one place. So I actually think that's a good thing. But get as many of them as you can. There's great stuff in all of them, right? We know that, but
That's right. And ST79 is so comprehensive. We know it, it encompasses all the cleaning steps and everything ancillary to that, because we know, right, the device has to be clean before we can achieve sterilization. So everything is really incorporated into that one document. All right, let's do one or two more, and then we do have to move on to another questions. We have so many comments and questions coming in. Of course, I have to ask this one. Came in, when will Standard 91 get an update or an amendment? So as many of you know, that's near and dear to my heart. I do co-chair that committee, and I did have word that we're getting closer on that. It is in the final editing stages, so it's going through like a technical editing to get it into the right style for AAMI documents, and that should be back out to the group just for a final look-see. And then we'll go to the standards board and ANSI for approval after that. So we've got a little bit of time left on it, but it's done already. It's just going through that technical process to really get it approved and finalized. So thank you for that question. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next question that we have, and then if we have time at the end, we can go through more of these comments. So this one is for Sharon. I know that there will be an amendment, or now there is an amendment. This is one that was sent ahead of time. So I know that there is a new amendment specifically on insulation testing. Can you discuss the highlights and what we would see in this amendment?
Well, I'm very excited about this one. This is long overdue, like we said earlier, and this with one amendment 2, which is 8.2, has a small section right in the beginning before it gets into insulated devices. And what I like is that it starts off, right off the bat that, enhanced inspection with magnification, borescopes, and other inspection methods. Basically those methods are there to actually verify the cleanliness and the integrity, and again, may be used. So in this particular amendment, there's may, a lot of should, and there's actually need to be, which is something I hadn't seen before in my experience. So that was the nice thing I saw, is right off the bat there's a paragraph saying that. The other part is obviously the insulated devices themselves. Key things that I wrote down that I think that are different and that I feel passionate about is the fact that, it said that instruments should be organized and protected from damage. Now, that says a lot to me, even though it's simple, is because I, traveling pre-COVID, all of the stuff that I've done in studies and such, I see a lot of containers not correct. It's not, damage doesn't just happen in transport, and we can't be pointing the fingers at each other in OR and SPD. Actually, a lot of it I'm seeing is the fact that the container is a mixture of both insulated and metal instruments jumbling up together and damaging the insulated devices. So I like the fact that that is in there, so you can look at the right container systems to house that, as well as even bipolar insulated forceps that are in big sets, like orthopedic sets. I've seen that. I'm like, wow, here's this little forcep that's all dinged up in an orthop set when it could be separated into another smaller container or something, or peel pouch. Another thing that I wrote down was this part is saying the instruments intended for use with electric current should be tested for integrity each time it is processed. Again, going to a lot of facilities, I would see facilities doing it every time because it gets damaged. It can be damaged on the first time around, okay? But I'll see them, we do it weekly, or we do it, when we get to it. We don't have enough tester. I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff and I've seen a lot. So I like the fact that it goes over that each time it is processed. Another one that I really like that Stefan knows about is the fact that it's addressing cables and cords, and we're talking about reusable ones, right? So a lot of facilities are using disposable. I always agree with the disposable, single use, but if you're using those reusable cables and cords, like the monopolar and the bipolar cords, it says in here that they're also a source of concern and need to be inspected and checked for, now listen to this, integrity and continuity, 2 separate tests. So integrity, insulation tester, right? And in continuity would be another test that would actually test the continuity, meaning it could be fine on the outside and everything passes, but doesn't mean it's going to work inside. And as a past scrub, I've been there. where I'm like, this thing looks fine, looks new, and it's not working, and then we'd replace it or throw it away. So the fact that it's addressing 2 different types of tests for the cables and cords, I really like that. Another one is addressing installation testers in general, that there's a lot of installation testers out there, but there may be a variety of accessories with that tester that are very specific to the type of instrument and specifically cables and cords based on the design of that. So I like the fact that they're addressing that there is a variety of different types of testers out there. The biggest one that I gotta say that is really nice is the fact that there's a table, and it's a 4-column table that goes over these 4 sections of what the instrument device category is. Another column is the inspection point for that type of instrument, and then the other one is possible damage, and then the last one is methods to assist in the inspecting and testing or testing. So I like that, because if you go into AAMI and you're trying to look at, okay, I have this type of instrument, I don't really know, I've never seen it before, or maybe I've had it, but I didn't know I need to do certain things. It's really nice to just go in a table, go across, and I know kind of what to do and what to see. Within that table, in those key points, there's actually, I think it's about 10 pictures in color to reference those key points. And it's not just laparoscopic. That's a big plus for me, because these pictures are addressing all the different types of insulated devices. It could be insulated scissors, it can be forceps, it could be robotic, it could be cables and cords. So it's a variety of stuff. And again, not just addressing laparoscopic, which we know it's just been the main thing that people think about. Now, another thing is that the categories in that table, because the first one that comes up, and I wrote this one down specifically because it says laparoscopic, including robotic instrumentation. Because if you think about it, robotics is laparoscopic. So understand that that's the first one right on the table, and then insulated forceps, insulated scissors, cables and cord. And they actually have on the very bottom LEAP or miscellated coded instruments, because that's also an area of concern. And then on the last column with those inspection methods and testing, each one of those had these 3 bullets: insulation tester, lighted magnification, and then something new, enhanced magnification microscope. Now that one stands out because that's a little bit different. Like, wait a minute, enhanced inspection? Well, that would make sense, because when you're looking at these type of devices, it's hard to see, even with the magnifier, okay? Then you can use a lighted magnification, which it does state in here. But when you use enhanced inspection, you can really see what the damage is, because you need to trend it out. You know, I go into facilities where they test it, yeah, it's bad, I'm gonna, send it for repair, replace it. But you need to look at trends, because how are you going to know where the damage took place possibly, and go back to root cause, which Marianne, you're very familiar with, root cause. But a lot of times you can say, oh my gosh, it's not transport, it's actually container, or it's actually the way it's being handled in decadam, or the way it's being handled in pans, or whatever it may be. So again, that, and then also documentation too, because a lot of those type of enhanced inspections actually document and keep a record. So that's kind of my spiel about it, but you can tell I'm really passionate about it. And it is 6 pages long just for insulation devices. So there's a lot I'm missing. I'm just giving you the highlights. You need to go back and actually look at that document, because there's a lot in there. So
I know that I have borrowed pictures from Sharon, because he's done such a great study. I looked at a couple of those pictures, the failure criteria pictures, and I was like, is that Sharon's picture? Because I mean, you've got some great ones because of how many that you looked at, and some of those were very close. I was like, I wonder if they asked Sharon for that picture. They're good. I mean,
we're actually running short on time, so unfortunately, I know time flies when you're having fun. But a few quick things that I do want to get to. We've had a couple people ask, how do I get these new amendments?
So for an example, I had recently purchased a new one last year. So I received the amendments in an email because I had just recently purchased, and I got the amendments in a PDF. So that was one way. I believe if you need to update completely, then you would have to go to the AAMI website to do that. But I had purchased mine recently. Now, I don't know how far back that you purchased it that you would automatically receive the amendments. So I'm not too sure on that, but I know I did that.
So if you're already had 79, you should have gotten a copy of that. But if you need the new ones and you don't have 79, then you do have to purchase that.
Yeah.
I do remember, and we see this in a different way than these guys do. When they did the first 4 amendments, if you had the previous copy, then you got it. So it is possible that, because this is really a reaffirmation of what was there plus amendments, there's a chance that if you have a copy, you might be able to just get those 4 amendments. But it's definitely something to check into.
Okay, and with that, we do have to move on. And let's get this slide to advance here. We're having a lot of good feedback in the questions tab, so thank you all for that conversation. We do really appreciate that. If you work at a facility, you should be able to get a copy. We have people, if you have ST79 2017 version, you should get them. So with that, let's move on and do our prize for the night. You see that on the screen. Sharon is demoing the UVC LED box there for sterilizing your personal items like your phone, your keys, badges, all of that. And and that's Steve Kovac's hand. I got a comment coming in. So how this is going to work, please open your question tab, and I'm going to ask you a trivia question that has nothing to do with work. Just something I found that was fun, and you enter your answer into that question tab, and if you are the first person that puts the correct answer in, we will reach out to you and we'll have this shipped to you, whatever address you would want that to be. We do have your registration information, so I will have your email, and I'm looking at the questions tabs and they're all time-stamped when they're received. So the first one marked in there is who will get this prize. So the question is, what is the rarest color M&Ms?
Oh, that's a good...
Look, I want to stop bleach wiping my phone, so I need this.
All wrong. Oh, I got one. No.
Ooh.
I'm trying to think of all the colors now.
That's my hand, by the way. That's not Stefan's hand. That's my hand.
Repeating the question, what is the rarest color M&M? And I've seen the correct answer, so let me... Oh, they're flying in so fast, I can't even go back and...
You have to go back and scroll to see what it is.
Yeah, okay. Let's see, who got the first one? It is brown, by the way.
Really?
Brown is the correct answer. Brown.
Yellow. Yeah. Brown? There you go.
Orange, purple, blue.
Facts.
Okay. The first correct answer for brown that was not a HealthMark educator.
Oh, that's cheating.
Please forgive me if I say the name wrong. Bhagwati Tiwari. Bhagwati Tiwari, congratulations. We'll get that prize out to you. I'll email you, or Sharon will email you, and we'll figure out where you want that sent. Thank you again.
You should go on a trivia show, my friend, whoever you are.
That's a good one.
All right, so let's wrap up then. We do have a few more of these programs scheduled. The next one coming up February 24th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 Pacific. And I will be on the couch this time with my coworker, John Whalen, and we'll be talking about ST91, and hopefully the updates will be out by then.
I'm
sorry. On the couch, so if not, we're
gonna sit on the couch.
Conversation.
Yeah, you're gonna sit on the couch. That's all you're gonna do.
I have a couch behind me. I could just sit on that. And then for March, we do have a COVID conversation talking about where we've come over the last year. And Melinda Elamari from Duke and Nestor Hernandez will be joining us on the couch. Sharon will be moderating, and we're going to be talking about some issues that have come up because of COVID, looking at things like staffing, and did you have any staff that members that became infected, or maybe reprocessing N95 respirators, anything COVID related we could be talking about on that. And then the final thing I want to draw your attention to, we do have some other events or some other educational opportunities that do have CE credits. Of course, we have all of our library of recorded programs on our website under the education tab. You can go and view any of those recorded webinars for credit or games, but what you see on the slide here are healthmarkevents.com, where we have a virtual vendor fair, virtual product booth, interactive booth, and then there are 4 educational programs on there pre-recorded that are all for credit. So when it's time to think about recertifying and making sure you have all your CEs for the year, then you can go here and use this as an opportunity. So I'd like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart and everyone at Healthmark for joining us tonight. Guys, if you want to take it away, and have a good night, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everybody,
Thanks
for coming.
everybody for coming. It's good to see you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that's cheating.
Yeah.
I know.
Bye, everybody.